Okay, let's start. So good morning, everybody. Let's wait a couple of minutes to let people join. Okay, so let's start. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to this EU Green Week webinar. My name is Nuria Casos y Sampere, and I work at ACR Plus, the Association of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resource Management. I'm here with my colleague Virginia Amate Padilla, and this webinar is co-organized with partners from the ProCirc and the Greener project. In this seminar, we will hear experience from the ProCirc project and in particular 2 case studies on how to measure impact from circular public procurement. And we will also talk about how to engage SMEs in circular and green tenders. We will get to know also the activities that are being developed under the Greener project to support SMEs. So we will also get insights on how the EU framework is supporting SMEs to participate in public procurement. And finally, we will hear from the Danish SME and their experience on monitoring. So this is the agenda for today. So we will start with a video from the ProCirc project, and then we will move to Anna Lupi from DG Growth, the European Commission, that will present how does the EU framework support SMEs to participate in circular and green public procurement. Then we will have a presentation from Alexander Lemans from the Government of Flanders on measuring circular impact, successfully ProCirc case study. And then another case study from ProCirc will be presented by Emile Assion from CAMC with the title CAMC Transition in Construction. Then we will have the presentation of the Greener project, supporting SMEs to engage in circular procurement skills and training, that will be presented by Stiliana Todorova from Cleantech Bulgaria. And last but not least, we will have Irma Vazelite from Klein Nordic presenting the supporting buyers' participation in circular economy and documenting the environmental impact. Finally, we will have a Q&A session and conclusions and key messages. So to start, we would like to show you a video from the ProCirc project.
I think what ProCirc does in one sentence is that it's about sharing knowledge on how you can use procurement to accelerate the shift from a linear economy towards a circular economy.
So today we're at the construction site for Centrum, which is the first circular building in Belgium. It's an office building that has been commissioned by CAMC, and CAMC is one of our partners in ProCirc. And so this building is very special in itself as they try to innovate more circular principles, but it will also become a learning hub for circular construction in the future. And for ProCirc, the pilot was in the procurement. So they had a fixed budget and they challenged the market to come up with innovative solutions and form consortia.
We have been running a pilot on furniture. And in this pilot, we have focused on reusing as much furniture as possible, to redesign furniture, and also to adopt furniture from other public organizations. And in this pilot, we have managed to save 100,000 euros. We have avoided the emissions of 50 tons of CO2 equivalents, and we have also avoided the waste generation of 30 tons. So the pilot has been very successful, and we're eager to share the results with other organizations as well.
So one of our actions in ProCirc is the creation of a circular procurement toolbox. So we have created this toolbox to help procurers, and they're able to filter tools depending on the stage they're at in their procurement journey. And we like to accompany this with minimum circular requirements. So we're trying to help these people each step of the way to gain as much knowledge as they can to make their procurement more circular.
The way we are going to disseminate the results of ProCirc is that we are going to arrange webinars and workshops. We will also have reports coming, summarizing the key lessons learned in the project. But also we have a separate high-level policy group who's working on policy recommendations that we are also going to disseminate to the European Commission and also to other influential policy makers.
So this will allow us to share what we've learned on policy and how policy can help implement circular procurement in Europe.
Okay, so we will hear about two ProCirc case studies later on. Now we start with the first speaker, it's Anna Lupi from DG GROW. Anna has been working in DG GROW on public procurement law and policy for 7 years. She's in charge of the Commission's policy on sustainable public procurement, coordinating awareness raising and dissemination initiatives on the topic, and the creation of support tools for public buyers. She has also dealt with a number of EU member states as a desk officer, and prior to joining the Commission, she worked in Brussels on issues related to EU internal market and to fundamental rights. So Anna, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nuria, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me today. I will just share my screen and I will go through a few notions of what we mean when we talk at EU level about circular and green procurement, and what can be done actually in the procurement process to support the inclusion of SMEs, but I will also talk maybe a little bit about our initiatives as well. So I'd like to start always my presentations with some data on public procurement to show you how much of a powerful economic instrument public procurement actually is. It accounts for about, in the end, 14% of our GDP at European level. We have a very, very high number of tenders which are launched in the EU, and the figures you see on screen are just accounting for the amount of public procurement that we see that is above the EU threshold. So there's a lot also going on with smaller volumes of procurement. And basically we work on this topic because it's a powerful market leverage, and it can really change the shape of our economy if we start using it wisely. So we've gone a little bit from this idea of working on public procurement at EU level to open up the markets and ensure fair competition, really focusing on supporting public authorities in EU member states to do their public procurements more efficiently. And more efficiently, of course, means taking into account their sustainability objectives when they launch a public procurement procedure, and how to reduce to the minimum their environmental impact. So we really developed a few policy instruments also around the concepts of social procurement, so having a social impact through public procurement, but also green procurement, which can be defined a bit like ensuring that you have a public procurement process that minimizes the final environmental impact. In the field of green procurement, what we are increasingly working on is the concept of circular procurement, which essentially allows public buyers to pay specific attention to closed energy and material loops in the supply chains. So it's about really looking at the whole life cycle of procurement, ensuring that it incorporates circular economy principles, and which will lead also to minimizing environmental impact. And from this point of view, there are several procurement models that can be adopted, and which have a different impact also on the procurement process. There's more of a system level of circular procurement, which is it's really about making sure that the procurement contract as a whole takes into account a circular model. So, for example, one of the classic examples is that you go from buying the specific product and making sure that the specific product is circular, to purchasing rather a service, and by purchasing the service, you make sure also that the whole life cycle and the way you interact with the supplier takes into account circular principles. So instead of, for example, buying a photocopier and paper sheets from the supplier, you buy let's say the copy service from the supplier, and then you ensure that repair and end of life and disposal of material is also taken into account, and you also look at how to minimize the environmental impact of those aspects. While the supplier level and the product level of a circular procurement model focus on different aspects. In particular, the supplier level focuses on building circularity, making sure that the circularity applies to the production process of the supplier, and that the production process meets circular criteria, while the product level focuses on the circularity, for example, on the recyclability or the ease, let's say the end of life of the product itself. And of course, it is desirable, let's say, that that all of these levels are looked at in the context of a procurement procedure, but as a minimum, the supplier and the product level should always be there. The other question that is very much linked to green and circular procurement, because of course these require an additional effort by public authorities. Public procurement is already a very complex process, both on the public side for the public authority to deal with, and from the supplier side. And taking into account sometimes green and circular considerations amplifies, let's say, the complexity of the purchasing process on both sides. But there are ways in which smaller enterprises, SMEs in particular, can be more easily involved in the procurement process. And one of the ways to do it is, for example, to launch a market engagement process before the public authority actually starts defining concretely what are their needs and how the tender documents are designed, because this can help also to understand what is on the market, how it can respond to the needs of the contracting authority, and if there are any smaller enterprises that can be involved in the procurement process, and how the procurement process can be designed to bring them into the project and to make sure that they bring their added value to the project. Of course, advertising procurement opportunities in advance is also important, and giving enough time for bidders to respond is particularly important for SMEs because they don't have the same capacity sometimes as bigger enterprises. Dividing the contract into lots is allowed under the EU public procurement rules, and it's actually one of the ways to sometimes be able to award contracts to SMEs. But also having proportionate selection and financial criteria, so determining who is eligible for the contract and making sure that the financial conditions for the contract are viable for an SME can help a lot. And I would also mention maybe rewarding, in particular, sustainability over price. Can really make the difference from this point of view. Maybe a short word on the tools that we've prepared on the topic of sustainable procurement in the Commission. They are tools that are mainly directed to public buyers, so to public authorities, to facilitate and to reassure them that certain practices are viable and they are actually successful at national and local level. But most of these tools are also fairly accessible for suppliers as well, and in particular for SMEs. We also provide some advice in our tools and some techniques on how to better include smaller and more innovative enterprises in the procurement process. We have several guidances, including one on circular procurement. We have collections of good practices, but we also have, for example, green procurement standard criteria, which are voluntary and can easily be used in a public procurement procedure. We have life cycle costing tools also for some product categories. And we have a green public procurement training toolkit that can be used independently. This is just to show you a little bit that, yes, we are working on legislation, and we will be working also on legislation to determine specific mandatory product-based procurement criteria. But there's actually quite a bit of work that we are doing to develop a little bit the green and circular procurement ecosystems, and in particular we have the Big Buyers Initiative, where we are basically providing the secretariat for a number of public buyers to sit together at the same table and work together on specific issues of circular and green public procurement, or on digital solutions. And in particular, here we have a working group dealing with zero emission construction sites and circular construction material. And what they do is really they engage together with the market. They discuss their needs, and they try to approach the market to find procurement solutions together. And we are going to also build a digital community that will not only support the work of these working groups, which as of next year should expand to another 10 working groups, out of which many will work on green and circular issues. But we also want to create communities of public buyers who really work together to address very specific sustainability issues in public procurement. And a final word maybe on our webinars. We have quite a lot of events where we try to disseminate knowledge and raise awareness on different aspects of sustainability of public procurement. We also have a help desk that is available to reply to your questions on green and social procurement. And we collect all of these audiovisual material on our YouTube channel, so you can maybe just go and visit and explore a little bit the content that we are producing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna, very much for your presentation. Virginia, I don't know if we have questions in the chat. I saw that there is one question we can take maybe now.
Yeah, there is a question for Anna. Do you believe circular procurement is somehow more than GPP?
So I guess it's more about the difference between GPP and circular public procurement. Maybe you want to say something about it.
Yeah, in a way, circular procurement is very much linked to green procurement, in the sense that it's the objective is again very much also to reduce the environmental impact. Circular procurement takes a little bit of maybe more of a holistic view on the production process and also on the procurement process itself. So it's pushing maybe public buyers a bit more to look at the at aspects such as life cycle costing. But I mean, in the end, it's a little bit of a blurred. The definitions vary a lot also across the EU, and we are not ourselves very strict on how to define these two elements. So it's a very fine line. But in the end, the objective is to make procurement more efficient, and I think the video of ProCirc shows it very well, that pursuing these reduction of environmental impact and doing it in a more holistic way also leads in the end to reducing costs in the long run. So it encompasses many different aspects, if you want, of the procurement.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Anna. So we have more questions in the chat, but we will address them at the end during the Q&A session. Thank you. So 1 second. Yeah, so now we move to the next speaker, Alexander Lemans.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Alexander. Alexander studied law at the Free University of Brussels and specialized in public law and public contracts in his final year. He works as a lawyer for the Government of Flanders since 2011 and joined the Agency for Facility Operations in 2015. Here he provides legal support for the central purchasing body and does policy work on sustainable public procurement. So the floor is yours. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some interesting case studies on circular procurement, and the one we are presenting today is our contracts for refurbishment of furniture in the Flanders region. So maybe just in short, the Agency for Facility Operations is actually part of the Government of Flanders. Yeah, and we do everything on, for instance, real estate, building project, housing, catering, cleaning. So actually we are the internal facility agency for the Government of Flanders. And we also, one of our competences is also public procurement. We work for the entities of the Government of Flanders, so you can compare the Government of Flanders as sort of a holding that consists of different agencies and departments. And for some services, we also work for the local authorities. We have a central purchasing body, and through this central purchasing body, we offer a generic offer through framework agreements. So we make large centralized framework agreements for instance, mobility, clothing, textiles, and of course also for furniture. So this actually is linked to real estate in our building projects. So building projects, whenever we have a new building that is will be used, there's also in many cases new furniture or furniture that is needed. We also have a separate division for our building projects. So everything that is public works is in a different division within our agency. One of the problems we had is that in the Government of Flanders, the number of public servants is reduced through the years, actually by 10%, and the number of buildings is also reduced. We're working more from home, so actually the number of workplaces has been reduced. And a lot of the furniture used to end up as waste, which is of course expensive because you have to pay to take it away as waste. It's also the environmental impact is also very significant, and buying new furniture for new buildings is also very costly, and has also a very large environmental impact. So one of the solutions we saw was making framework agreements on refurbished furniture. So actually now we have two separate framework agreements. One is for actually services on refurbishment. Just to give you an example, what is possible with this framework agreement is whenever a government has moves from one building to another, you can buy all needed services from this contract. So the first thing you need is you have to make an inventory of your existing furniture. You have to make a study, the existing furniture, how can we use it in our next building? What do we have to change? What pieces can we reuse? What pieces do we need to sell, etc. And then the final thing you can, of course, also the execution of the refurbishment is also in the contract. So actually the repainting, making alterations to the furniture, changing colors, changing finishing layers, etc. And then there's another framework agreement, which is for off-the-shelf refurbished and standardized goods. So the contractor has an offer of refurbished furniture that is made from old wooden plating that is recovered from other buildings, and they make sort of standardized furniture with it, and you can buy that off the shelf. So it's just a fixed price per unit, and that can be used. So the both of the framework agreements are usable by all the entities within the Government of Flanders, and the service-based one is also available for local authorities. The main goal was to mainstream refurbishment within the Flemish public sector, because of course it's not always easy to make circular procurements, and by using a framework agreement, all entities and municipalities can actually easily buy refurbished furniture without all the administrative burden of making circular procurement. Yeah, just in short, so there's two separate framework agreements, but within one refurbishment project, both framework agreements can be used. So this is an example that was provided by our contractor. So you can see on the picture here, there's blue items, and they are just moved from the old building to the new building. So there's no alterations made, no repairs made. It's just they are moved, they are reused without any alterations. Then you have the green, the desks are green, and these are also reused but repaired, and there were some changes made to it. So for instance, the desk was, for instance, white, but new building has more like a black color scheme. So the top layers are removed and new top layers are added. And then the orange items, they are actually off the shelf refurbished furniture. So actually in one project you see the orange pieces are coming from the second framework agreement, and the other pieces and the study and as a whole has been made on the service-based framework agreement. So it's actually two framework agreements that are used together to facilitate refurbishment projects and housing projects. This is an example of furniture that is off the shelf. So this is actually soft seating and acoustic elements. And the inside is old wooden plating that is recovered from old buildings. And of course, the foam and the textiles are new, but are also sustainable materials. Yeah, just in short, we used a competitive procedure with negotiation, which of course is in 2 steps. We thought this was needed to optimize the offers and to fit the particularities of the Government of Flanders. Interesting to note is that the method of procuring, of tendering, was inspired by our contracts for insurance agreements. So there's a separate in these tenders. So the tender documents have an annex, which is a sort of separate contract, and this contract was then the objective was to negotiate this separate contract, to have actually a separate contract that consists all needed information for the entities that will be placing offers. So it's actually quite an innovative approach to making this work. And then also the negotiations were very important for the discussion on reporting and monitoring. So we wanted to have good data on the amount of kilograms material that has been reused. We also wanted to have very good financial data. We also wanted information on CO2 emissions that were reduced. So this was also discussed in the negotiation phase, how we would make this work in the execution phase of the contract. Then we had a preliminary informative meeting. So we knew that this was something new in the market, and we had a preliminary meeting to raise interest in the market. We had 4 interested enterprises in the meeting. But unfortunately, we only had 1 request to participate, and also 1 offer in the second phase. The upside, so that's one of the things we want to better in the future, to have more competition. However, some of the interesting enterprises now work as a subcontractor for the main contractor. So it's actually more than 1 company that is concerned within this framework agreements, but mostly as subcontractors. So the contractor is needing new office facilities, which is an SME. And actually they have quite an interesting backstory. They started as a moving company, but they also, so the people they were moving, so the companies they were moving for, they also had a surplus of furniture, and this actually started their business on refurbishment and repairing furniture. Then one of the interesting things in the framework agreements is that there's a sort of growth trajectory. So office chairs, for example, is something that is difficult to refurbish because there's a lot of different brands. There's a lot of different types, a lot of different materials used. Sometimes there's the use of glue. So when things are glued together, it's difficult to refurbish them. But we wanted to do something about this. So in the negotiation phase, a growth trajectory was actually negotiated. So after 2 years within the contract, the contractor had to make it possible to refurbish some kinds of office chairs. So the office chairs that are the most frequent within our buildings, or some of them actually, can be refurbished. Then there's also sort of a credit system. So this is actually a sort of double incentive for the entities of the Government of Flanders and municipalities to use the contract. So whenever you transfer old furniture to a near new office, you get credits in return. And these credits can be used to make new purchases for refurbished furniture. So actually it's a double incentive, one to get rid of old furniture. I want to buy new actually refurbished furniture. Of course, this is not this is not very easy to put into practice because the contractor has to accept the old furniture, but they also have to get rid of they have to repair it and also get rid of the new furniture. So the old furniture has to meet certain criteria. So you can't just drop anything with enough. It has to meet certain criteria. The success of this is limited until now, but we hope to expand this the following years. Then something on CO2 emissions reporting. So NOF has a specific method of doing this as a software calculation tool developed by themselves in cooperation with RDC Environnement. So it's actually a proven method, and there's a lot of science behind it, and the data and parameters are updated every year. And the interesting thing about it is that every entity that uses the framework agreements, they get an eco certificate with the number of the amount of kilograms CO2 that have been reduced compared to buying new furniture, which is also important for raising awareness and creating visibility. Then the reporting on materials is something new. We only have for this contract actually, sort of pioneers work, is that the contractor has made the engagement of measuring the amount of kilograms of materials that is reused. So they did a lot of studies to make this possible. And in 2020, more than 5,000 kilograms of materials were reused. Also, of course, new materials are used. So whenever something is repaired or new material is being used in the furniture, so is also possible. And then in 2020, 86, more or less 87,000 kilograms of materials was reused, which is quite a significant increase. But a lot of it has to do with COVID. So a lot of entities within the Government of Flanders supplied their workers with home deliveries of furniture. This made a large increase, and also the contract has been becoming more and more known within the public sector in Flanders. So that was in short the essence of our contracts for refurbishment of furniture. I don't know if there's more any time for questions. Maybe questions can be asked in the panel discussion later.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander, for the presentation. Yes, indeed, we will ask you questions at the end. Yeah, during the Q&A. Thank you. So now we move to the presentation of Emile Lassion from CAMC. Emil is an industrial engineer and has been working in the construction sector for 16 years as a project manager. In August 2019, he started at CAMC as project manager of the Circular Building Centrum. So, Emil, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Nuria. Thanks for having me. You should see my screen right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I'm Emil. I'm with CAMC, and CAMC is part of the province of Antwerp. And the mission of CAMC is to stimulate the transition towards a more sustainable construction industry. And today I have the opportunity to tell you something about our pilot project within ProCirc, our circular office building, the public procurement of our office building. And you saw a glimpse of it in the video shown at the beginning of this webinar. And again, I'm pleased to tell you that we are finished the building right now. So on this first slide, you see the end product. So we moved in a couple of weeks ago, and we're very pleased with the results. So I can show you some pictures of it. We're not involved in the greener project, but from what I understand, it's about involving more SMEs in circular public procurement. And when I was thinking about that, I realized that actually most, if not all, of our building was actually supplied or executed by SMEs. So let me take this opportunity to show some pictures of parts delivered by SMEs, and then I'll continue to tell you how we got these parties involved. So on the left is the grid structure of our construction. So it's a cross-laminated timber structure on a 5x5 grid that was specially developed by our main contract, actually medium-sized company. And this grid is very modular and adaptable. And he has developed this grid specially for this project, and he has meanwhile been able to implement it in several other buildings. The picture in the middle is a detailed picture of our facade, and on the right you see a green wall. It's called a total value wall. It's by a one-man company actually, and he developed this system that actually filters gray water, so water from our showers, our hand washers, and the filtered water is reused in the building. And also on that picture you see these nicely aged wooden facades. That's because they are reclaimed from another building, and then they have been processed in a social workplace. So they took the nails out and resorted them. And on the right hand, you see our seashell insulation. So it's the floor insulation. It has very good thermal properties as well as vapor moisture barrier. So we don't need anything like polyurethane or something like that. Some other examples, you see these white tiles. They're actually acoustic tiles made from mycelium, so the roots of fungi. So it's a fully natural product. In the center, you see another green wall on the inside, as well as these stairs. They are reclaimed from a demolition project and then refit to fit in our project. And on the right, you see this concrete column feet. It's actually the only concrete we used in the building, and they are all modular feet. And the good thing about these feet is that they contain zero cement. So local startup scale-up company was involved in this, and they delivered the alternative binders for the concrete. So these columns, these feet, they have a very low environmental impact compared to regular concrete foundations. Another nice outcome is the environmental impact of our building, which was assessed by the University of Liège. We did not have much quantitative requirements in our specifications, but it turns out that we have a very low impact. So what you see on this picture is a representation of the global warming potential. And it is actually our building compared to several similar buildings in concrete, steel, and hybrid constructions. My pointer is stuck, but on the right of the picture, you see the total life cycle impact. So the small orange beam is actually a negative CO2 impact compared to a similar sized steel or concrete building, which have CO2 impact over this 20-year spans of 600 to 900 tons of CO2. So that's a very significant difference. So how did we get there? Let's talk about the process briefly, of course, because we have limited time. But we started off by formulating our vision and our main ambitions. So we wanted a circular office building, an exemplary circular office building, and it needed to be future-proof with high flexibility because, of course, that's a big part of sustainable construction. The ability to change with our changing needs. And of course, also we wanted a healthy and comfortable environment. This is quite obvious, but often not put forward enough in procurement. And the last one is more specific to Camp C to support our mission. So the building needs to really breed circularity and stimulate other contractors, other building companies to do the same. So for the specifications, I'll focus on some key highlights about how we got these SMEs involved in kind of an indirect way. We did not really aim for a lot of SMEs, but this is how they got the opportunity to get involved. So we focused on very functional specifications rather than very technical and elaborate specifications, because in our opinion, the market is the real specialist. These contractors, architects, engineers, they're the one who built these kind of buildings every day. So we focused on what we wanted, but not on how we wanted it. And this leaves, in my opinion, a lot of room for innovation, for suppliers to distinguish themselves with their ideas. Another element is that we asked for a building consortium from the start. So it was a two-step competitive dialogue, and from the first application, they need to have formed a consortium because we wanted a balanced team that had input from all parties rather than a main contractor and a subcontractor, so that you get a holistic concept from the start. We think these kind of functional specifications also create a very low threshold for participation, which is probably very beneficial for SMEs as well, because you don't need a team of lawyers to fill out your application. So that's a good thing as well. A last tip maybe for specifications, don't be too restrictive in your specifications. So don't ask for loads of references in circular constructions or all of the materials to be cradle-to-cradle certified, because you'll exclude a lot of smaller startups and scale-ups. It's better to leave room for future improvements, and that's why I really like the growth trajectory that Alexander was talking about. This is a very nice example of how to implement future ambitions as well. So a brief word on the award criteria. So these are our main award criteria. We did not have any award on price. So about circularity, we asked for performance statements on a number of different themes and subtopics. So I think in total it was about 40 of these aspects on which the consortium had to formulate what they were going to do about it. It's an open question, so there's no ceiling, so the ambition can be very high and they can kind of pick what fits the total concept best, rather than just focusing from our side on one element, such as, for example, the percentage of recycled elements. And we think that leaves room for a total concept and high ambitions. Yeah, that's about all I wanted to say about. Maybe some main takeaways. So if you were going to do procurement in construction, I think it's always good to keep these three main systematic changes in mind that are needed to stimulate transition in construction. So we need to change the way we design buildings, start from the end actually. What are we going to do with this building when it's no longer of use to us, or when we have a changed need? Change the values we put first. So what's really important, and apply those in the tender criteria. And a big part of it is also change the way we collaborate. So instead of these conflicted, very top-down models we have now, it's if we can cooperate more and put these values first with the entire building team, we get to a better end result. So yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Very nice presentation. Interesting. We will ask you questions later on after all the presenters. Yeah, if for the audience, if you have any question, please feel free to add them in the chat. So now we move to the next speaker, Stiliana Todorova from Cleantech Bulgaria. Stiliana has more than 10 years experience in Erasmus Plus projects development and implementation, and she was involved in the project coordinator and organization of all project activities within the budget framework. She was also responsible for cultivating long-term relations with existing partners and developing networks of stakeholders. So, Stiliana, the floor is yours.
First, thank you for the invitation to be part of this event. I hope you see my presentation and you hear me well.
We don't see it.
Really? Okay, I'm sorry. Just a second. Okay. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now we are okay.
Yes, perfect.
So I'm here to present Greener project. It is an Erasmus Plus project dedicated to green public procurement. Yeah, it's boosting industry engagement in green procurement. These are the partners, project partners. We are 2 partners from Bulgaria, 2 Italian partners, a partner from Spain, and from our partner is here from Brussels. So the project duration, we started in December 2020, and we supposed to it will finish in November this year, 2022. Our main objective is to support and capacity building activities to improve we are focused on SMEs and public administration that are involved in circular, and green public procurement. So our, let's say, sub-objectives, like I told you, our focus is on SMEs. We aim to improve the skills of the procurers and the administrative profiles. We are aiming, we are addressing also the public authorities, and we want to improve the response of the regional actors and create awareness. And we want also to influence the vet systems and to enhance the traditional profile curricula, to be more responsive, and to be more adapted to the future skills that are needed. With all this, we will empower the vet students to have better employability. The outcomes that our project expects, it's the development and implementation of new training curriculum of circular procurement, which, as I already told you, to be adapted to the future trends and needs of not only the SMEs, the administration, or society. This is our future, and we want to enable all participants with the skills that are urgent. In order to make this, the first step is to raise the awareness about the advantages that they will have when applying the sustainability and circularity. Also, the other very important step is to support the collaboration and the exchange of good practices, of examples between the different fields, industry, the public authorities, the business, also the people from different sectors. That includes vet providers, entrepreneurs, and of course different nationalities. With this project, we are few countries, and we also can exchange good experience. And one of the final products, let's say, of our project will be the modular training course. I will tell a few words later about our course. So we started to create the modular course. We started to defining the skill gaps that are in regards to GPP. We launched a survey in all partner countries, and we also made interviews with SMEs and public authorities in order to identify which are the skill gaps. So we firstly found that there is a lack of knowledge of the tendering process. This is like a barrier. All the procedures, all the documents are stressing especially for the companies that have never participated in public procurement. Also the terminology, it's quite, let's say, stressing and difficult for them to pass this, to make this step and to start participating in tendering process. And when we include the environmental criteria, the things are getting worse, let's say. The next step is the environmental sustainability. So this is really a big obstacle to not participate in GPP. So that shows that our aim of the Greener project is exactly on the topic, and we want to help SMEs to raise their awareness, to make them more free and ensure in their knowledge and their capability to participate in the green public procurement, and to be to know what are the green requirements, how to apply to them, and to prepare their, let's say, documents in accordance with these green criteria. And the last, but I think not least, we found that it's very something that is missing, the investment in human resources. So it's absolutely needed to invest more in the people that are working to raise their knowledge and their skills. So here you can find we developed a skills framework based on these gaps. So first, regarding the knowledge of the tendering process, we defined some procurement specific competencies which are regarding the management of the public procurement procedures. The second gap that I already mentioned regarding the sustainability, environmental sustainability, we called these knowledge and skills green competencies, focusing sustainability and resource efficiency. And the last one, talking about human resources, so we focused on some soft skills, soft competencies that are needed for to the procurers and to the people that are involved in the process. And this is just overview how the skills framework looks like. You can find it in the webpage of the Greener project, and you can use it for the people that are working in your company. So based on these skill gaps, we developed the modular training course. We included 5 modules with the project team. We decided that these are the main topics that will help to the companies in the process of participating in green public procurement. So you can see we start, of course, with introduction about the project, about what our course aims. And the first module is with initial information, what is GPP, and why, of course, could be an opportunity for SMEs. So we thought that this is the basic, and we should start with that and give the information what is, let's see, which are the advantages to participate in this green public procurement. Then we continue with information how to understand and find public tender, where you can find it, what is written in the documents, how we can read all these, let's say, difficult words and new criteria that appear in regards of the green things. After that, we focus, we go deeper how to comply with sustainability requests from public authorities. Then we thought that it's very important when you want to start to follow this path of greening, let's say, and green procurement. It's very important to know how to raise the awareness into the SME, how to involve every employee in this idea and in this process. And finally, the module 5, it's to improve the chances for successful application. Let's say some tips and some information how to be successful in this process. This is how it looks. It's again on our webpage. And the first picture is how each module looks like. And the next page, at the end of each module, the trainee, let's say, can follow this questionnaire and evaluate how what he or she has learned with few questions. And at the end of our project, we want to elaborate a toolbox which is targeting companies and training providers. It will include 3, let's say, important sections that we think that will be really useful. Methodological guidelines to engage companies in circular tenders. So the next one is more oriented to vet providers, how to design initially continuous bed programs. And we will finish this toolbox with some fact sheets of good practices and good examples, programs, modules on GPP in order to be also useful, not to give just the theory, but also to show some practical and good examples. So thank you for your attention. I tried to be fast and to give you the more specific things of our project.
Thank you, Styriana. Thank you, Styriana. Yeah, we will ask the questions later on. Thank you for the presentation. Now we move to Irma Vaselit. She will present from the SMEs perspective. Irma is a channel manager and purchaser at Klein Nordic, working with optimizing companies' bottom line through sustainable IT strategy and helping companies document their sustainability IT journey. So the floor is yours, Irma.
Thank you very much, Nuria. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the opportunity. So here I am presenting on the SME side of things. It also has been very interesting to hear the rest of the speakers present their perspective on circularity, on sustainability, and also on the procurement. So that has given me quite a bit of things to think about as well. So that's an amazing benefit already there. But coming back to my presentation. So I would actually like to start by presenting our company so that you have a bit of a better understanding of who we are and what we do. So at Klein Nordic, we work towards helping companies to engage in circularity within their IT department. We complement and optimize our customers' TCO, or the total cost of ownership, ROI, or the return on investment, on their IT infrastructure through, as mentioned, sustainable IT strategies, along with the equipment lifecycle. So here we talk everything from the procurement to the actual end of life within IT hardware. You might be sitting and thinking, well, that sounds an awful lot like an IT asset disposal or IT asset management activities. True, yet not a whole picture. So a lot of companies, they actually already engage in what we call ITAD or ITAM activities. But at Klein Nordic, we actually believe that ITAD is just a very small part of the sustainable IT strategy. So here with us, we see that IT strategy should become synonymous with assets, with the IT asset lifecycle management. And most important word here is life cycle. So that's again from cradle to end of life. And within that, the sustainable corporate IT strategies should be designed to actually facilitate cost optimization, efficiencies, and best practices in IT asset management. So our team, all in all, we have over 25 years experience in IT industry. Today we work with over 75 countries, and we have a huge global network of vendors, partners that actually allow us to work all across the borders and provide the very best services to any one of our customers. And that really is all through and because of our unique approach to sustainability within IT. So the three basic building parts to our service, they are very simple in essence, but the combination, this is what the strongest part to sustainable and circular IT is. So the first one, as you'll see on the left side of your screen, is of course trading new and used equipment. So here we actually buy back used IT hardware from companies that are shutting down or renewing their equipment. We clean this equipment in terms of both data, but making it in a presentable shape, and we give them a second life within companies that well, they don't necessarily have the highest expectations or highest functionality requirements of the IT equipment. The middle part of your screen stands for trading secondhand Microsoft licensing. Doesn't necessarily have too much to do with sustainability or environmental impact of the IT, but yet if you think about this, circularity, it actually gives valuable assets which doesn't have any lifespan within your company anymore to come and serve a different company. So within that, we actually purchase ownership Microsoft licensing from European companies that migrate to Office 365, Microsoft 365, or for any other reason have excess licensing in their company. And with that, thereafter, we sell to the companies that require these licenses and don't necessarily want to pay top dollar for the very newest license. But the thing that really ties all of these processes together is really the reporting part. Here we provide all documentation to our customers on secure data deletion, on required documents in software trade. So again, that's audit and Microsoft who's breathing down your neck. But the most relevant part of the reporting to this conversation is what we call IT sustainability reporting. And this is something that I'll introduce in just a minute. So let's just take a little step back and come to the very basics. So circularity in IT. IT is actually becoming a cornerstone for many companies to run their daily operations. This also means that IT is becoming one of the most cost-heavy slots in companies' budgeting. And it's still a major environmental sinner. Data centers actually account for one of the biggest percentages of CO2 emissions today. So that's something to think about. And within the definition of circular economy, the circular economy within IT, it actually represents a more environmentally friendly and equitable alternative to the traditional linear economy. So where you actually buy, use, and throw away. Instead, we go into the circle as represented on the slide. In this economy, the resources are actually used to the very longest time, to the very longest potential. They are getting the second life. And when there is no longer potential for reuse of the equipment, this is where you go into the recycling of the materials or the raw materials that the equipment has been made of, which eventually gets recirculated into the production of the new equipment or the new product, so that less and less natural resources are being dug up and exploited. So our take on the circularity is, of course, by giving IT assets new life, and when that life is no longer valuable or equipment is no longer functionable, the recycling stage of the life cycle management. But also what the whole circularity part means, that it's not only something that you do, but it's also very important that you document and you make all of these make your initiatives actually visible for the rest of the world. So this is what we talk about when we speak about reporting of the IT sustainability. So this quote, it's an amazing one from Matti Jetta, from Sustainability Lead at DEFRA, who actually gives a very good insight into why circularity and sustainability is so important and so necessary within IT. Just the fact that 50 to 60% of the world's tungsten is found in our devices and 9% of the world's gold is in them as well. That makes you think second time before actually throwing away your equipment. if the second life is not available for that equipment, then recycling should be the main focus on how to get all of those raw materials back into circulation, into the market. But of course, not everything as simple as we say. So there are, of course, challenges with circular IT that we see many of our customers have been struggling to start with. Just to give it a good example of why it can be a challenge is think back to 2016 when GDPR was first introduced into the market. It was a massive buzzword. Everyone was excited about it, but no one really knew what it means, how do we work with it, and how should we implement it within our company. So circularity and sustainability within IT is sort of a similar thing today to GDPR back in 2016. It's a massive buzzword. It's something that companies very much want to do and want to contribute with. But since it's still a new thing, they need to get to know it, they need to understand it, adapt, and most importantly, adopt it within each of the company. And when companies are faced with tons of reporting, CSR, ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance report, sustainable development goals. Yes, one is amazing, so you would think that the more should be the merrier. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. What we see in some companies that they are simply struggling to making sense of all these process designs for each of the reports, measuring criteria, requirements between all of these reports. It just simply becomes too much. So companies get stuck and they don't know, how do we do it? Where do we start? And the overwhelming effect just becomes too much. But not to worry, we're here to help. So as mentioned before, the environmental sustainability or the IT sustainability report is one of the things that we see that we can help you report your environmental impact, at least within the IT. The sustainability report, it can actually be used within both CSR, ESG, or any other similar corporate report your company is required, potentially not required, to produce. And within the circle, again, just a very quick roundup of how everything is connected together is by starting at the very top arrow. When the company purchases the new equipment, there will, of course, be some environmental impact on that. Companies typically use their equipment 3 to 5 years, to which after that period, the equipment gets shut down. So normally the customer was to throw it away or pay to get rid of it. Now there is a process to actually get it to be reused. So after a specific period of time when the equipment has lived its second life, and now there is no more potential for it to relive the equipment or to give it a longer lifespan. This is when the recycling comes into place, and the sustainability report ties all of these 3 things together. So this is a very brief clip out of what sustainability reports really shows. So here in the first part of the sustainability report, we actually show the difference between your old and your new installations. So what does that mean? When you, let's say, decide to renew half of your data center or half of your laptops within the company, that will, of course, make an energy consumption less compared to old devices, simply because of the old technological improvements that has happened within the last 3 years. But knowing that, it's not enough, as mentioned. So showing how does it affect both in terms of the energy consumption, so that's your total cost of ownership, that's your return on investment, old installation compared to new, but also the second important part, which you'll see on your top right-hand side of the screen, it's the CO2 part of the reporting. And that's again the CO2 offset, the CO2 savings, and how the future CO2 offsets would look like when switching from the old installation to the new installation. And of course, just for the very fun of it, a little clip out of operational cost changes between the old installation to new installation. So that's something that your financial departments might be quite interested to see. Now moving to second and the third part. These two parts are more linked to different directives. So the second part, reuse, is linked to EEE directive, which is Electronic and Electric Equipment Directive. And within this directive, the requirement is to actually report how and where the electric or electronic equipment is being reused, if it's being reused. And here at Klein Nordic, we actually made ourselves specialists in reporting all of that to our customers so that they always have traceability and transparency within these initiatives. Of course, besides that, there is a CO2 offset of giving that used equipment a second life. And of course, there is a GDPR or data deletion part to the second part of the report. Whereas in the third part of the reporting, recycling, it really leans itself on WEEE directive, which is waste of electric and electronic equipment. And within this directive, companies within the European Union, they must report how their waste is managed. A lot of you might already do that on different parts or in different parts of your businesses, but IT, at least what we have seen so far, has often been overlooked. And this is where we can help you document all of these initiatives again on any equipment that is no longer functionable or cannot be reused. How does it get recycled back? So how much CO2 has been reduced by recycling equipment properly, as well as whether these raw materials have been recycled back into manufacturing. Have they been used to produce energy? Have they been deposited as hazardous material, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So that's just a very, very short introduction to the sustainability reporting. But hey, all of it might sound that it's very much a future thing, but no, at Klein Nordic, we don't think that's a future thing, because future isn't coming, it's already here. And this is why from our side, we really invite you to join us and build this sustainable IT future together. So that was my note. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't go too much over time.
Thank you, Irma. Thanks a lot for the presentation. So now we will move to the questions. Maybe it will last 10 minutes longer because I think it's very relevant to have the time to ask the questions to our speakers. So first question for Anna Lupi, that it was in the chat. Maybe Anna, if you are here. Yes, thank you. So a question from Lika Bosman. The tools are available in some sectors. The market also seems ready. Should the next step indeed be legislation with some minimum standards of sustainability in public procurement? What is your concrete planning on this?
So what we are indeed planning is to have a product-specific approach. In most cases, you will have heard that there's a proposal to review the Eco-Design Directive, and that will lead to the adoption of mandatory minimum criteria on green public procurement specifically. So this work will be mainly product specific, but there are also a number of other legislative initiatives that will have an impact in terms of establishing some mandatory minimums when it comes to green procurement. You may have heard of the batteries regulation, which is one of them, and it's probably about to be adopted. I think it's at trilogue stage at this point. But there's also, for example, the Energy Efficiency Directive, and there will also be initiatives in the field of food procurement. So indeed, we are moving towards a direction where we will increasingly have some minimum mandatory standards for public procurement in terms of sustainability. As I was saying, the effort is more product or sector specific rather than general. So there is no plan, for example, to revise the directives so that we make it mandatory in a generic way for public buyers to buy sustainable. Obviously, I mean, it's a bit of a political choice to make whether you want to make it generically mandatory to buy sustainable for public authorities. What we often see is that it doesn't necessarily always help to tell public buyers that they in general have to buy sustainable, because they don't know what it means concretely. And public procurement is also very much about how you purchase the specific product. So I mean, for the time being, that's a little bit the line.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for the reply. So we will wait for new legislation to come on specific product groups. Okay, so now I saw that in the chat there were a question for Alexander, but thank you for replying. So I have a question for you. So it's about the data, the accessibility of data facilitates the reporting of indicators and the achievement of objectives. Did you face any challenge in collecting this type of data? If so, how it was addressed?
Do you mean the data within the contract, so the kilograms of materials and financial data and stuff?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, actually we didn't know what was possible because of course there's a lot of different companies that do refurbishment in different ways. So actually the all things considered reporting was discussed. So there was minimum reporting in the tender documents, but it was very minimal. And then the negotiations were used to clarify what would be reported on. And actually, the new office facilities looked into their processes for making refurbished furniture, and they said, yeah, we will be able to measure for every item we produce how many kilos of new material is used, how many kilos of reused material is used. So actually it was just so the reporting we have is very I think it's really interesting, and it's more than we have in other contracts, but it was made possible because just of the negotiations. I think this level of reporting, it's impossible to do, for example, in other contracts for instance, ICT hardware or something. The players are way more global, and the products are way more complicated. So yeah, it's a good example, and we'll try to make it happen in other contracts as well in the future, but it will be a step-by-step procedure, I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So maybe a question now to Stiliana. From the Greener Observatory, what do you think are the key needs for better engagement, and how these needs can be translated in practices?
So in my presentation, I explained some of the big challenges and, let's say, barriers for the SMEs to participate, but that will be very, very short. So more staff from public authorities that is available for the SMEs when they want to apply. I think that less bureaucracy, clear legislation, because I see that in some countries it's still not very clear defined and well developed, the legislative framework. More support, this is the real, let's say, the practical things, more support and more trainings and education, not only about SMEs, but also for the public officials, how to announce, how to communicate, how to proceed when there is a tender, and how to help, let's say again, SMEs to participate and to apply.
Yeah, thank you very much. Then a question for Emil, because you mentioned that you carried out the market consultation for the preparation of the tender. So what came out of this consultation, and also since this pilot showcases that the collaboration can bring very excellent results, how did you achieve this level of collaboration and trust between all the parties?
Okay, it's a lot of questions. I think when you're talking about market consultation, are you talking about the organization of our market master classes?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's we organized these classes to engage the market, actually, because we were not sure on the fact whether we would have a lot of responses or not on our procurement. It was 2018, I think, and we were not sure whether or not the market was ready. So we organized a series of master classes with some famous speakers, Thomas Rau and so on, to attract the public and then also inform them about our procurement. So to get them more insights in what we were going to do, and there was a big responsiveness to them, probably because we had some attractive speakers, but it really created interest for our procurement as well. And because we asked for a team to subscribe to our procurement, they could already team up during these master classes, which were not actually part of the procurement. But so to us, that really helped out a lot. It's of course a unique opportunity for us because we could organize them from our organization. It's not possible to do that with every procurement, but it's a good thing to think about how you are going to launch your question and reach a big audience. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of the question, can you repeat that, is about creating trust?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think that mainly came from the way we have procured this. So our criteria were, for example, action plan was about 20% of the criteria. Mm-hmm. So with this was, how are you going to cooperate internally? How are you going to cooperate with us? How are you going to approach this? So that's a part of the award criteria is actually about that. And of course, when you put these more these values first instead of money, you get parties that envision the same goal as you have, so you create this automatic kind of trust, I think. So mm-hmm. It's kind of a side effect from a good circular procurement.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
And then a question for Irma. Yeah. So SMEs often have more difficulties to get contracts with public authorities, no, as we addressed also in this webinar today, since they have to compete with bigger companies which have more resources. No? How do you overcome this challenge, and what would you say is your added value?
Yes, so that is definitely a question that we could spend the whole day trying to find an answer, because there are indeed a lot of barriers or a lot of difficulties to actually, first of all, to get to the bidding round. But not to take the whole day, so I'll try to resort it to a shorter version as possible. But thinking about the big companies, obviously they have resources both in terms of time, in terms of people who can sit down and write very elaborate public the tender submissions, as well as everything from legals to finances, so that everything works as a clockwork and it can be produced within, let's say, a week if we're on a good day. With the SMEs, we don't have that luxury, since obviously working on a tender is important. We do want to win it, but we also still have a daily business to run. So simplicity, that would be the first huge benefit, as quite a few of the speakers have already mentioned that. But thinking on a bit of bigger scale, what we try and focus in our garden is to actually make this competition as irrelevant as possible. And that would really mean that, think about it that way. When a big company wants to win a tender or a project or a contract, they are actually can compete on price. So they can go into red numbers on their own end just to get the contract. We as small companies, we can't do that. We need the money to operate. So obviously, competing with the big companies on pricing is not a smart thing for us to do. So in this case, that means that we need to focus on the value that we provide or we offer to customers. And in Klein Nordic, we actually have internal strategy that rests on the value innovation model, which means that within all of our offerings, we work to reduce or minimize or eliminate costs for companies while creating or coming up with additional value. So think of a very simple example. Previously, company would have to pay someone to come and get rid of or destroy all of their equipment, to pay money to actually delete all the data responsibly, to report for that. Today, we're coming up with a solution where we actually, of course, contribute to environmental questions, but we're also coming with money to the company for the equipment that they're no longer using, while providing them value through automatic documentation. So again, data deletion, GDPR standards, such as or staying along the lines of the standards such as NIST or DoD, as well as the sustainability reportings. So these becoming the fields when you no longer play on prices, but you actually play, or should I say, compete on something that is much more than a pricing. And this is exactly coming with value to the customer. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. So I think now we arrived at the end of the event. So I would like to thank you all the speakers for the presentations and involvement, and also to all of you for joining us. So the recording and the presentations will be available on the ACR Plus website. We will send an email to you with this information. And yeah, and that's all. So thanks a lot and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.